Democratic officials in 25 states in the District of Columbia have just sued the Trump administration, this time for using the government shutdown to suspend SNAP food assistance payments, which they argue is unlawful and, quote, arbitrary and capricious. Those are legal words, y'all. Now, the complaint argues this. USDA suspended SNAP benefits even though, on information and belief, it has funds available to it that are sufficient to fund all or at least a substantial portion of November SNAP benefits. In other shutdown news, a federal judge granted a preliminary injunction today, barring the Trump administration from using the shutdown to execute mass layoffs of federal workers. One of the attorneys general who is suing the White House over SNAP payments, Aaron Ford of Nevada, joins us now. He is also a candidate for governor in the state.
Attorney General, welcome. It's good to have you. How do you assess things right now on the ground where you are, given the timeline that we've so far been under with respect to the shutdown, now really coming up against the hard reality of a lack of resources available to families to feed their kids, to provide health care. The filing claims that the Agriculture Department does have enough to fund all or substantial part of November SNAP payments. How do you reach the conclusion that the funds are going to be there? What's your assessment of where things are in your state? And what are you looking for from beyond the opening of the government? Because the other side of that, once it opens, everybody's got to play catch up because there's still resources that got to get to families and communities.
Well, Michael, great to see you this evening, and Simone and Alicia, thanks so much for having me on. Simone hit the nail on the head relative to the purposes of this lawsuit. Once again, the Trump administration is breaking the law, this time by cutting off food assistance that Congress has required it to provide. That's why I and my colleagues have taken Mr. Trump to court again. This time to force USDA to fulfill its legal obligations to keep SNAP benefits flowing and to keep food on, in my instance, Nevadans' families' tables. In my state, you asked what it looks like on the ground. 500,000 individuals receive SNAP benefits. Nevadans of every age, from children to grandparents, they're receiving this help from a program that puts food on the table. And in my state, when you have 1 of 4 Nevada children who don't know where their next meal is going to come from, this president is deciding that he'd rather let kids go hungry than to use contingency funds that Congress has set aside to keep families fed and that he's legally required to use. You combine that with the fact that we have a governor who vetoed a bill that could have guaranteed school lunches to our children. We are in dire straits, and that's why we've sued.
Attorney General, I know sometimes you hear numbers like 1 in 4, and that can seem abstract, but I know to you this fight is particularly personal. So I'd like you to speak to that and also to the timeline for SNAP recipients if this lawsuit is to proceed.
Yeah, you gave me goosebumps when you mentioned how personal this is to me. The fact of the matter is I know exactly how this feels. I know what hunger looks like. My dad worked at a grocery store and would bring home stale food, candy bars in particular, that he found next to the dumpster because the boys got to eat. I was a single parent in college, and I lived on food stamps. It kept my son and me fed. Medicaid kept us healthy. And so these types of programs are important. And I understand exactly the trepidation that Nevada families are feeling right now. And I don't want Nevada families to ever feel this kind of stress, especially when Congress has already indicated what's to take place by setting aside contingency funds in the circumstances where these individuals can be fed during the shutdown. And so I'm going to stand up. I'm going to continue fighting. I've said it before, Mr. Trump gets to do what he needs to do from a legal perspective. But when he violates the law, I'm going to see him in court, and we're going to win.